Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Brad Vincent, self-proclaimed water geek.
And I'm Shelley Peters, the self-proclaimed water snob.
We're about to kick off a series of podcasts all around water quality in Canada. Welcome to the Podable Water podcast.
And today we are going to make sure that you have an opportunity to learn everything you possibly can about World Water Day.
This was a brainchild of Shelley's and mine from a few years ago. We thought it would be great to get in front of some folks and have a candid conversation about water quality in Canada. I come at it from a bit of a newer perspective. I've only been in the industry for about 10 years. I started in a warehouse building water treatment all the way up through to calling on customers on the road, anywhere from residential all the way up through to light municipal. And most recently, I've shifted over to working for a manufacturer for disinfection equipment. All the while, I'm the current president of the Canadian Water Quality Association.
Well, and mine is similar to yours, Brad. I started, well, it'll be 39 years ago, working for a company as their purchasing manager and having to learn about all these things called injectors and brine tanks and all that kind of stuff. But moved on to ran a Ontario branch for manufacturer and spent many years doing that, and then moved into operations, into sales and a director of sales. But today I am the executive director of the Canadian Water Quality Association and have the opportunity to get together with great members across the country, and some of them were old customers and some of them are new people, but it's a great opportunity and a great field to be in.
We chose right now to launch our podcast because we have a big event coming up globally that we can talk about in our inaugural episode.
Yeah, we've got World Water Days coming up the end of this week, and I think they do a really great job of bringing insight into what's happening around the world with respect to World Water Day. And this year's theme is kind of ties a little bit to my heart, only because we're talking about inequality, and they talk about how it's usually the women that are in some of these countries that have to go and get the water and then disinfect the water and all that kind of stuff. And we don't have a lot of those issues in Canada, but one of the things that we don't have a lot is also women that are really strongly involved in water. So it's kind of cool that this comes just after our International Women's Day as well, that where we've featured some of the great women that are in water in Canada. So lots to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to provide a little context to the event that we're talking about, World Water Day, every year celebrated on March 22nd. And it's a UN-sponsored event, essentially, in observance of highlighting the importance of fresh water and advocating for sustainable management of the water resources around the world. It focuses on tackling global water crisis with over 2 billion people lacking the safe access to clean drinking water. And it helps support water and sanitation for all by 2030. That's the goal.
Yeah, that would be great if we could, but we're really, back in Canada, I don't know that we have people maybe don't understand the challenges that there is to obtaining really good water, drinking water across the globe. I mean, Canada has 20% of the world's fresh water. So we're pretty lucky what we've got right here, but it definitely is not that everywhere.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, I don't want the perception of Canada to be that because we're so water rich that things are easy. Because even infrastructure here in Canada really shouldn't be taken for granted, because there are some communities within Canada that are still facing those struggles of consistent or at all access to clean and safe drinking water.
Yeah, there's still, hundreds of boil water advisories that happen every day right here at home. And, the other areas, really, we've got to start talking about the drought conditions that are happening across our country, but all countries, and what some of the technologies are going to have to be to address some of those things as well. So lots of, lots of different key areas to sort of look at and have conversations about.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of tie it back to CWQA and some of our social media, I think we just posted recently heat map of the drought conditions within Canada, and it's quite alarming to see how many of those dark areas are kind of spread across our country. I know there were some pretty vast areas out west, but I'm calling in from Atlantic Canada, and we're even though we got piles of rain just in the last 24 hours, we still experience quite severe drought, pretty much seasonally now. Every summer, somewhere's going dry. Wells are drying up, and it's been a bit of a battle, not just water quality, but water quantity.
Right. Yeah. And, you take that to the west of Canada, and, the prairies are really struggling. They didn't get the level of snow that they normally would get this year to try to help, replenish those aquifers. And so, yeah, drought's an issue, water quality and making sure that we have water for all is definitely the challenges of today. And I think what we want to do with this podcast is just you know, bring some light to the challenges that are out there for the water, but also bring in some experts that could help us to talk about what some of those challenges are and what we're seeing to fix them. So I think hopefully we can spawn off and see some great results for this, not only for our industry, but also consumers, for people abroad, everywhere. We are very fortunate to be part of a great association, and the more awareness that we can bring to the industry and to help those within it, I think is going to be a great opportunity.
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22 where the better you do at water treatment, the less you hear about it. It just starts,
Yeah.
blending into the background.
Yeah. And, when we look back and really our focus today is to bring awareness to that World Water Day for the world is, the things that have to happen is the testing has to be, a little bit more accessible and available. And then some of that technology that you talked about may have to be simplified for some areas, but complicated for other areas where they're maybe having to take seawater and desalinate it, which is, you and I both know that's a much more challenging opportunity there. So, I think World Water Day is, we really want to make sure that we can try to improve and get quality water for all across the whole wide world. And one little step at a time is what some of the water professionals that we deal with every day are doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then obviously once those solutions are implemented, that's not the end of the story there, right? There's always the additional costs of upkeep, continued testing, right? If you're in a
Mhm.
vulnerable site that has potential bacterial contamination, you want to make sure all the solutions that you've implemented and paid for are also still doing their job, 2, 3, 4, 10 years down the road. So there's additional testing and upkeep that needs to be happening annually. And sometimes when we once we get the implemented solution in place and things are working great, it kind of goes to the back of your mind, and you don't think about it until all of a sudden something breaks and the water quality dips, and your issues come back, right? So there is a little bit expected costs unless we're front end loading those conversations with the expectation that it's going to be an ongoing thing for homeowners.
Right. And it's one of those things that, it gets put down in that basement or crawl space or somewhere, and it's easily forgotten, but it's certainly a pretty important piece to everyday life today is to have, your water tested and checked and, just make sure that you're doing everything you possibly can to ensure your family has good drinking water for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think I was explaining before before we started recording that we just moved middle of the year last year, and when we moved into the house that we're currently in, there was a bunch of old treatment down in the basement, and knowing and being in the industry, I was able to kind of come in and see what was needed, what wasn't. Cutting some stuff out. There was an old Fleck 5600. You don't see those every day anymore. But yeah, cut one of those out and had to put a booster pump in because now I'm on city water, and the water pressure, wasn't so great on the upper levels. Where in my previous house, I was on a well. I had a bunch of treatment in there, but I never had pressure issues because I was always looked after from the well pump, right? So. Now I'm on a very different infrastructure in my personal life. So I've seen both. I've seen the duality of municipal, town water and what the quality is like and the quantity and the pressure. Um, and I'm constantly, taking it back and comparing it to what I was able to produce myself from a well that I had drilled and I put the treatment in myself. So there's the both sides of the coin, right? Because you're paying your water bill and expecting a good quality product, but that's not always the case. Municipalities have a mandate to provide a certain level of treatment
Mhm.
for a product that is consumable, but there's aesthetic qualities that they don't necessarily need to handle themselves. But the onus would be on the homeowner to take it to that next level. So whether it's a reverse osmosis under the counter at the kitchen sink to provide that really pure product, or over to a fridge, maybe someone would want to put some sort of bacterial protection like UV in their mechanical room if they're stripping the chlorine out because they don't like the taste of the chlorine. Right
Yeah.
now, your pipe work has a bit of a vulnerability there. So
Yeah.
it's just it's funny to see both sides of the coin now that I've kind of lived as a homeowner through both scenarios.
Well, and I've probably been pretty fortunate to have been on some really good municipal water for most of my life. But one thing that we have in the area where I am is a lot of hardness. So, I went from a house where I was only about 18 grains to now moving to one that's between 33 and 35 grains. So, just the differences in that side of it. But I certainly have got some stories as a kid living on the farm what we did with the water, but that can be saved for another fireside chat here about where we've come with our water and what we can do next. But no, I think you know what I think raising as much awareness as we possibly can to those that are on municipal water, just to know that there are options to enhance your water really is all that we do from that side of it because as you said they do provide us with the quality water and sanitized and properly treated and etc. But those that are on well water, it's really important that you take the time to get your water tested. That just doesn't happen, and we have the ability in Canada to take that water to labs and get it tested and find out what's in it. And as we circle back to this World Water Day, there's a lot of areas that do not have that opportunity to be able to just know that their water is safe for them to drink. So they've got to spend hours boiling it and making it safe for the family to be able to make meals or bathe in and all that kind of stuff. So really, as we look at it today, how fortunate we are in Canada, but let's shine that light on the world as a whole and what little bit can each of us do to try to make that a better place.
Absolutely, yes. You mentioned taking the time to boil the water, but some of them don't even have water brought right to their own residence, right? Like there's time necessary to
Yeah.
go even fetch the water, right?
Right. That I think that's great. And the focus is really to get, as they mentioned, it is the most times the job of the women in the family to go and walk for miles to go get the water, bring it back, boil the water, do the laundry with the water. And what really they're wanting to bring awareness through the UN is that we need to incorporate more women into into this industry to be able to really have a say on how water's treated, how it is even from an infrastructure point of view that they might just have a little bit different of a view than what some others are doing. So, where water flows, equality grows. As a woman in the water industry for 40 almost 40 years at this point in time, I really this resonates with me quite a bit, and I look forward to either helping or mentoring other ladies to get into this industry because I think it certainly has served me well for my time here.
Absolutely. We'd all be made better for it, right?
Yeah.
The difference of perspective, it would, yeah, it just makes the community and the industry thrive.
Yeah, I think that's great. Brad, I look forward to a lot more conversations. I think you and I can talk just about anything about water, being you're the water geek and I'm the water snob. I think we can spend lots of hours on this, and we'll get together with some colleagues soon here that even more stuff will come to light for us. So that's
I got a
great.
few people on the short list that I think we can invite to the conversation that might bring some flavor.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. There's
Yeah.
somebody I know right off that I think he's dying to be on the podcast. So
I've been asked a few times, I believe by the same person.
yeah,
It should Yeah, we should start getting the calls out and filling up the slate because I feel like we're going to be able to fill some time. There's always news emerging about new contaminants. We could talk for ages around that big scary word PFAS
Right.
that gets thrown around a lot, and you maybe dive in and explain things like that. Regulations from maybe like a Health Canada standpoint.
Well, and
Tips and tricks for homeowners, stuff
next
like that.
week at our conference in Toronto, we're gonna talk about water that had uranium off the charts and what did we have to do with that. So lots of opportunities for learning and this is a great platform for that as well.
Yeah. So just to kind of circle back around, some closing thoughts around World Water Day. How can folks listening in take action from home? Obviously, conserving water use within your household. Not leaving the tap running when you're brushing your teeth. Only run it to clean the brush. Things like that. Obviously, raising awareness, like we're trying to do right now. You know. Be a part of the conversation, share stories, share tips, share tricks. Really, that's what we're trying to do is just build awareness. We had already mentioned that water quality when everything's great is kind of invisible.
Hmm.
People don't really think about it, especially here in Canada, where a hefty amount of our population does have pretty decent water. And then finally, just educate yourself. Listening into the podcast, you'll be able to learn a thing or two along our journey.
And the other side to it, I was just going to say for World Water Day, there's some other great associations that are involved internationally to help with
Mhm.
water. So, if you want to be a mentor, want to try to help out in some of those cases outside of Canada, there are opportunities for you to do that as well. So I think our summary, as Brad put it, really it's comes down to education. You need
Mhm.
to, as a consumer, be educated, as a provider, be educated. All of that comes down to great education. So hopefully this will be a little piece of it for you.
I guess we've got our first episode in the books, Shelley. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. And I'm looking forward to the next conversation that we can have. Keep
Maybe
an eye
we'll
out.
have to do one live in Toronto.
I
Oh,
was thinking about that, Shelley,
there's just a
and
little bit of we could tease people with that one.
yeah, this gear packs up pretty small.
That's great. Alrighty. Well, thanks so much, everybody. And just one thing to leave. Don't forget if you're on a well, get your water tested.
That's right. Get it tested. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.
See you next time.